Hey, welcome to Hijacked Identities, how to protect your brand and job seekers from scams. I'm Jay Jones and I'm here with Jessica Hernandez, Aaron Kennedy, and Melissa Cohen. And today we will talk to you about the prevalence of brand fraud, brand scams, and how it affects not only your brand for the foreseeable future, and then also how it can actually hurt job seekers in the long run and what we can do to help prevent that going forward. And the next slide, if you could, Jessica. So I'm Jay Jones. I'm known as a profiler on LinkedIn. I'm a fraud prevention and scam investigation consultant, also a senior copywriter. I was laid off in December of 2023, 2 weeks before the birth of my daughter. And when I got inundated with all the scams in the job market, I decided to take them on because I felt a personal responsibility of, if I didn't address it, if I didn't make people aware of what was going on, I felt a responsibility of them being scammed. And so I couldn't allow that. And since I've been doing this, I've gotten over 31,616 fake jobs off LinkedIn and over 7,000 fake resume writers and recruiters off LinkedIn. So thankfully, the work is working and helping thousands of people. And, I believe that this event will help thousands, if not millions more. So, yeah. And the agenda today will be part one, real stories, career coaches, brand theft. So we'll hear from Jessica, Aaron, and Melissa about what actually happened to them and the effect that it had on them, not only professionally, but personally. Second part is understanding brand fraud and scams. Third, how scammers operate, protection strategies and tools you can use. And then from there, the audience Q&A and closing. And so whoever wants to go first, I believe it'll be Jessica to share your story.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. So about a month ago, I had a job seeker reach out to me on LinkedIn asking me if some communication that she had received from someone claiming to be me using an email address that had my name in it, but was actually a Gmail address, was actually from me, that she thought she had been scammed. And so I started digging to find out more information about what had happened. And then the next day I had another job seeker message me, and the next day I had another job seeker message me. And it was essentially the same scam. There was a recruiter from a large name company that anyone would recognize that had a fake profile on LinkedIn and was referring job seekers would reach out to them and say, hey, I have this job, send me your resume. They'd send their resume, and then this fake recruiter would say, oh, you need to get this updated here. Use this person. I trust them. And then would refer them to someone on Fiverr that was pretending to be me, using my name, using my headshot, my website address, my LinkedIn URL, but using an email address that had my name in it. It was like Jessica Hernandez resume pro at gmail.com or whatever. And so people were thinking this was actually me, and they were paying this person on Fiverr who had some like weird profile that wasn't even linked to me, and then engaging with this person to get their resume done. And since then, I've had dozens of other job seekers, unfortunately, reach out to me to say the same, that they were either targeted or were scammed by this person or a very similar situation. So it's very frustrating. A lot of my content gets copied on LinkedIn. I have a lot of people that imitate me that copied my website content. And I feel like it's a full-time job to keep up with the amount of people that are stealing intellectual property, stealing content, and now using my name, my brand, my reputation, my business website, my LinkedIn profile URL to scam the very people that I'm trying to help. So it's damaging to my reputation. It's incredibly frustrating to see scammers taking advantage of vulnerable job seekers. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Kennedy. I listening to Jessica, I'm just nodding. It's the identical thing for me. Same thing. A couple of weeks ago, I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn. And he was like, hey, I heard somebody, this recruiter from Boeing reached out and told me to contact you on Fiverr. I was like, okay, wait, what? And luckily, thankfully, he said, I went to Fiverr. It didn't, and he said, then I looked you up on LinkedIn and it was completely different. And, you have credentials, so the person on Fiverr, which, now going through this with dozens of other people. Same thing, like, except for me, it was different pictures. They were all different pictures, but it was my information, my name, my credentials, slightly different email address. But with my credentials in it, like Erin Kennedy CERM and Erin Kennedy CPRW. Um, and and telling everybody that I now work on Fiverr and that I'm doing these gigs. But thankfully, everyone was like, this just doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound right, you know? So, but within a matter of a week, I had so many people reach out to me with the exact same story. And Anita, my customer, my client success person, same thing. She said, "Oh my gosh, we're getting these emails and they're asking about you." But luckily, people did their due diligence and they realized that it was a scam. Thank goodness, you know, because that's the worst. Since Melissa, Jessica, and I have been posting about it, we've been hearing about people that um, aren't that haven't been as lucky. So, you know, that part is pretty unfortunate. But just like Jessica, for years, people have been, you know, stealing my content. You know, there was another resume writing company that stole my entire about section. So this isn't new, but this is taking it to a whole different level now. You know, it's one thing stealing my content and using it as their own, but another thing um, to reach out to job seekers to try to get them to work with them. So there's just so many scams, so many AI scams. I just thought we all decided we needed to talk about this.
Yeah, that's actually how we connected, Aaron. I found that the fake resume writers were using your content, and then I alerted you, and then from there, that's how we got acquainted. So yeah.
Yep.
So my story has some similarities, some differences. And first, I just really want to say thank you to all three of you for doing this today, because I think it's really important. Before I became a solopreneur, I was in corporate and I was in job search twice in my life. And it is a really difficult place to be, right? You're already kind of morally deflated. You're very vulnerable. You might not be thinking 100% clearly. And I have absolutely no patience for anybody who tries to scam somebody who's in job search. So my first point of contact was actually through my website. And it was somebody asking me, "Is your middle name Lauren?" And I thought that was a really odd question because my website is my full name, which is Melissa Beth Cohen. So of course my middle name is not Lauren, but I answered and I said, "No, my middle name's Beth. I don't think I'm the person you're looking for." And that's when she emailed me and said, "I think someone is impersonating you." And what this person was doing is they had their own website set up. It was pretty atrocious. But part of what they had on that website was screenshots of my LinkedIn recommendations that they were using as their own. She was saying that she was Melissa Lauren Cohen. And very similar from there, directing people to work with me on Fiverr, right? And all this convoluted sort of web of people. And similar situation, I started to get more outreach from more people via DM on LinkedIn that they were confused or that they had uncovered that this person was doing this. And what's interesting is I do work with job seekers on their LinkedIn profiles. That's definitely part of the work that I do, but I don't do resumes. I don't do job search. And so it's quite interesting to me how far these scammers will reach if they feel that they have a viable target that they can take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, they don't care. They'll do whatever it takes. Like I said privately before the show started, if you're a creator, if you're a brand, if you're a professional of any note, and you get any kind of traction or you portray yourself in a way that is entirely professional in a way that they cannot because they don't have the skill to do it, I'll be honest, then they'll just outright steal from you. They'll take your career history, they'll take your name, they'll take your likeness, they'll take anything that they can, and they'll jump around and piecemeal it from different profiles to try to evade detection. But, since I came along, I made it a lot harder on them to do it. So if you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting a couple of questions.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking how you can tell. I think you're going to get to this later, but how you can tell a fake recruiter from a legitimate recruiter. on LinkedIn. And then Linda Spiegel, I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name correctly. She's a colleague and she's been through a very similar situation, but with some differences. So I don't see in the comments where she went through explaining her whole scenario, but there's definitely several career coaches in the comments that are saying, you know, this is happening to me too. So it's not just us.
Yeah, it's a widespread epidemic / scamdemic. You know, it matters because, you know, it can destroy and erode the trust that job seekers have in professionals like you. Because if they get scammed, I've said this before, if they get scammed by someone and they think it's you, you know, worst case scenario, if they see you in real life, they could think you're the person that did this and it could end in a bad way. Or, you know, what happens is they find the real person, which is you, and then they expect you or another real resume writer to basically discount their services because they were scammed, or, you know, offer some sort of benefit because of the bad situation. But that's not fair to you, that your business should lose money because, you know, someone was scammed. But it's a mess. It erodes the job search. It makes the job market even more difficult, which is what they want. They want you to be unable to earn money. They want the job seekers to continually look for work so they can continue to scam them. And so it's way out of control. And like I said, I want this to stop.
Yeah.
And then if you can go to the next next slide, please. So this was Melissa's example of her identity / likeness being stolen. She heard about my service, the Profiler Protection Service. And when she told me the situation, she said she sent a cease and desist and it was ignored. When she reported the site, it was actually a situation where they said we were just the host of it and there's nothing that they could do about the content. And so what I did was I, you know, dug deep. I found every thread possible to prove that this was actually outright fraud and outright deception. And so 3 days later, after I showed that this is not her name, this is not her website, this is not her picture, that's a picture of a woman, I forget her name, but I think it's Beth or something like that, but she doesn't even work in the career coaching industry or anything like that. But this was part of 2 email threads. One was 77 pages long and the other one was about 30 pages long. And these scammers went to great lengths to make it sound legitimate, but it ultimately fell apart at the end when the job seeker was trying to make a payment and they said they could only send it through a foreign provider like Wise or something like that. And then an email that came up was like a Mohammed Mayastafar or something like that. And then that's when they realized it was not Melissa at all.
Yeah. You know, I was going to read one of the comments that I see. It says, you know, if they're not actually getting, if they're not gaining from this, or what are they gaining from this if there isn't any financial information exchanged? But I think once, you know, somebody is working with that recruiter or that resume writer on Fiverr, there is money exchanged at that point.
There's definitely been some money exchanged. I mean, luckily in my case, most people did not pay anything. It didn't get to that point. But there are a couple of instances where money was exchanged, right? Because they were promised this outstanding resume or they were promised that they could find them a job. And you really have to, and I know Jay's going to get into this, you have to look for the red flags, right? What doesn't make sense? What isn't lining up? Why would a career services person who has a really big presence on LinkedIn, why would they be asking you to pay them on Fiverr? That's a huge red flag,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, Fiverr, WhatsApp, you hear those run.
Oh my gosh, WhatsApp is a huge red flag right there. Yeah.
And I said this before, but the currency of the day is information. So yeah, they'll take the money too because that works immediately. But the data, you know, they get from your resume, just by getting your resume, I tell people to consider it like a light credit card application because with your resume, they can cross-reference and place you throughout your life. And if you look at it like a credit card application, they'll ask, you know, where you lived for the past 7 years. They'll look at your resume. They'll see the career history where these jobs were based. If they were remote, they can work around that. And then they cross-reference it on sites like whitepages.com and other ones that publicly show, you know, where you've lived. And so all they have to do is look here. And before you know it, they have a fully completed credit card application. And then how they get your social is they'll walk you down this, what I call the scammer pipeline, and they'll make you a quick offer, or they'll be patient and make it towards the end so it seems more legitimate. And then that's when I ask the questions like, what's your driver's license information? What's your social security number? Because it mirrors a real hiring process. But by the time you realize that this is a scam, either you've sent a check, either they've sent you a check for office equipment, or your first day you're ready to get started and you don't hear anything. And then you get an alert from your bank. And then by then it's too late.
Yeah.
And then here for Aaron's example, this is a current fake website on Gamma.app. And Gamma.app is a real business website. It helps professionals either create presentations, custom websites, and different things quickly so they can have a professional presence online. But the real website for Aaron is on the right. And I currently messaged the 3 co-founders. I'm waiting to hear back from them to get this website taken down. But some of the red flags with this site is obviously they're using her name, but you don't see her picture anywhere. And then you're not able to see it, but at the very bottom, they have client testimonials, and they have pictures of different companies like PwC, Accenture, and a few others. But really, these testimonials, it's just pictures of these companies' logos. There's no people actually leaving a testimonial, and there's no picture of anybody on this site. So it's entirely fake.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed too, is that it's just pictures of company names. And I was like, well, that's not a testimonial. It's just a logo slapped on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry for the rendering. StreamYard, it doesn't render the text properly, but we'll deal with it. So this section is understanding brand fraud and scams. And so if you go to the next slide.
Yep.
This was a case from mine, I would say about 8 or 9 months ago. This is actually when I was solely focused on the resume writers, because being a job seeker, and the first thing you need to do is make sure your resume is in a good spot. And that's how scammers head you off. They start by pretending to be fake resume writers. And in this instance, this guy's name was Sangin Khan. And what he did was he pretended to have a certificate. And I was bothered by it because I know this is a real certificate. And I mocked this up myself once I figured out the way that they did it. It was a way for me to get people's attention and see, like, I'm not an NCOPE. I never have been an NCOPE, but I wanted to use this for illustrative purposes to show that these are the lengths that they'll go to look real while they're actually entirely fake. And so I looked at this certificate this guy had. If you can go to the next slide. Mm-hmm. And I thought about whiteout. You know, as a kid, you know, you play with whiteout, you take things off of the page and write something new. And I was like, well, what if he digitally whited it out? And so following that thought process, I was like, well, how would he do it? And then I asked myself, like, maybe he used a font detector. And then I found this website called What the Font. And what you can do is you copy the font that's on the actual certificate, put it into that What the Font website, and it'll bring up the actual font that's either the closest or the exact match. And Michelle Dumas, she's a real NCOPE certified resume writer. And so that's how they did it. They took the picture off of the internet, put a white filled in text box from Word over it, and then put the text that they detected on top of it. So it's very convoluted. And then Thomas Pounder, he's the gentleman, he's a friend of mine, and he's the person that makes people NCOPE. So, you know, he's legitimate. He saw this post, like I said, it was from 11 months ago. And Sangin is not an NCOPE certified writer. And there's a quick way to check this. Any resume writer who claims they're certified by NCOPE, CPRW, CERW, and there are a few other ones, you can go to these different websites and type their names in. And if they don't show up, either they've let the certificate lapse or they never had it. In this case, anybody that is overseas, I typically believe that they never had it. And then this instance, this is actually really troubling because it involves the fake hiring profiles that I've seen. This profile was called Helen Gray, but it's actually a picture of Hedvig Vessel, if that's how you pronounce her name. She's a Norwegian skier. But what bothered me is Confidential as the company name, and then she's hiring for 45 jobs. And if you go to the next slide. So this person who posted this job, he's an actual employee at Robert Half, but I redacted his information. But once I saw that this fake profile was attached to the real one, I decided to send him a message and let him know what was going on. And he responded with a thank you. But what's troubling is scammers have the ability to not only add whatever company they want on LinkedIn, they can also, once they join that company, list the job in that company's name. I've seen many people complain about this. There's one woman I helped out many months ago. She is the founder of a resume writing company, and there were 90 fake profiles. They said that they worked for her, but they didn't. And when she tried to get them taken off of her profile, LinkedIn said there's nothing they can do. They can't remove them manually. So the only workaround is to delete your entire company page and then start a new one. But you shouldn't have to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It always falls back on the person getting scammed, having to do all the work to reverse it.
Yeah, it's insane.
When you're a business owner, you don't have time. Like I could spend 40 hours a week tracking down,
just monitoring and tracking
that steal my content or are using my name or pretending to work for me. Just like all the things. There's just not enough hours in the day.
And that's what they count on. They know that you're busy working. They know that you typically only tap into LinkedIn to interact with your audience, to promote something, to help the people that you can, but then you have to get back to the day-to-day operations. Meanwhile, they have entire teams dedicated to this. You know, another tell is if they're in a foreign country is if you see a lot of activity during midnight to 5 a.m. because over in India and other places, that's daytime for them. And then here, if you look at all of these pictures that are on the screen, these are all fake profiles that were all on a hiring team for a job that was, I believe, official. But because it's listed under confidential, you don't know who the company is. You don't know the actual company that you'll be working for. And so if you go to the next slide, I can delve into that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this page is confidential. I've been watching it for a while. It has 2 million followers, but it says it has 2 to 10 employees. Now, I don't know if this page is entirely fake, but I wouldn't trust it if it were me, because the reason people list jobs as confidential are for a variety of reasons. You know, they don't want the person to know that they're going to be replaced. So if they see their job listed online, that could cause some issues. If they're replacing a person who works in a major position, it could hurt the company's reputation, damage the stock, because the higher level the person, if you see that kind of inconsistency in the leadership, it can hurt the business. And then the third reason is they want to control the flow of applicants because they don't want to be inundated with thousands of people applying. And, you know, we see that all the time. You know, the job posted and within an hour, you see 800 to 1,000 people apply to it, and it's ridiculous. And a lot of that is foreign people who use the resume writing aspect, where they steal people's identities and information, and then they apply to jobs as those people. And so it clogs the job pipeline. So real people have a harder time finding work. And so in this example of confidential, this is a job for a general manager for Premier Cycling, destination in Dubai. But there's only one person who was the job poster, but everyone you see here, these profiles are all fake, and yet they're all hiring. And then if you go to each individual profile like I do, I see that one profile will be hiring for 11 jobs, the other one will be hiring for 7, one for 40, one for 20, one for 35, and it just goes on and on and on. And there are literally thousands of these profiles on here doing this. And I'll stop for a minute if anybody has any questions that you see are popping up.
Yeah, Hector was asking, what tools do you use to do a reverse image search? Someone in the comments, I think Denise had said she started doing a reverse image search of the profile picture. She said it's extra work, but it helps her stay safe.
Yeah, what I typically do is I use Google reverse image search, but these scammers, they get crafty, because what they'll do is they'll put the hiring banner on the actual picture. And what that does is it throws it off. And so when you're trying to detect it, you won't ever, not ever, but I say like about 70+% of the time you would get the person that is actually behind that, but they'll manipulate it. They'll purposely make the picture really small. They'll pixelate it. They'll do layering, face swapping. They'll do a bunch of stuff to evade detection, but there are other ways to find it. You can use other AI face reverse detectors. I won't say it publicly because they like to follow my work and try to adapt. So you can't go wrong with Google image search. And then at the point, if you have to even get to that point of reverse image searching somebody, that's a red flag enough for you to like basically leave them alone.
Yep. And then another question was what's the most effective way for job seekers to identify this type of scam, and what do you recommend they do when they do spot the scam?
The speed at which you get a message, the repetitive nature of the comments on the profile across different people who are open to work. The two first names is a big tell. You know, there are only a few people that have two first names that are real. You know, I can think of Chris Paul, Paul George, a few other people, but you know, they use the two first names to try to avoid being detected or have a basically a match to somebody else who's on LinkedIn. The other thing is look at the standard messaging that they use. Like if you see the word kindly, if you see a lot of M dashes, if you see a lot of emojis thrown in, if you see a lot of introductory messaging that basically is overly flattering, because I talked about this a while ago where I call them the recruiting love bombers because they'll come in really fast. They'll be like, hey, you're wonderful. I can't believe like you're out here in this job market. And you're like, I can't believe it either. And so you're like, yeah, I agree with you. And so you start to listen to them. And, you know, by then, if all they need to do is earn your trust for a split second and they got your resume. But to recap it, watch out for the immediate responses once you use the open to work banner. If you make any posts and you see these comments saying, hey, go to this Gmail account, go to this Outlook account, it's a scam.
I really want to talk about that one for a second because that's what happened to me, right? My scammer was not even on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And she had the audacity when she was asked for her LinkedIn profile to say, "Oh, I had to shut it down due to fraudulent activity."
Yeah, they
So
yeah. they build in excuses, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
no. What was happening with my scammer is these, just like you were saying, Jay, these double named people, right? Joe John, Steve Harvey, Chris Paul. They would find posts that have a lot of traction and a lot of engagement on them, and they would look for anybody who had the open to work banner specifically, or who said that they were looking for a job, and they would say, "Oh, you should reach out to Melissa Cohen. She's a wonderful recruiter. She helped two of my friends get outstanding roles. Here's her email." So be really wary of something like that. There is no good job search coach that I can imagine that you have to go off of LinkedIn to communicate with initially, right? Of course, it's going to move off of LinkedIn at some point. But if your initial point of contact is some random Gmail, it's very likely a scam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the times I've seen these comments and emails from recruiters, I've only seen one legitimate recruiter actually use a Gmail address, only one. Um, and then you have to think about it as a job seeker. There are thousands of people who are applying for roles, and everybody's clamoring to be, you know, at the top of the pile, be the first to respond to a job posting. So why would a recruiter put their personal email out so they can be blasted by all these people? And it just doesn't make any sense. And so going back to this not so confidential job posting. So the purpose of confidential, I explained before, is to discreetly hire people and keep the stability of the company intact. But if you go to Confidential Careers website, they had this role for HR director Robert Half. Now, if it's supposed to be confidential, then why do I see Robert Half here? Why do you see Robert Half here? And then if you go to Robert Half's website, they have the same role, HR director. I believe it was filled now. But there's no reason to go to Confidential Careers and click apply now, give your name, your first name, last name, your email, and then your resume. But then it's on Robert Half's website directly. Just go straight to Robert Half. The issue here is that you had your data harvested because they insert themselves into the process, and they're job scraping and being middlemen to collect your information and then sell it down the line.
Yeah. Debbie Marshall asked in the comments, does working only with profiles that have the certified, I think she means verified check mark, help, or do fake profiles have that check mark too? I think she's talking about the verified check mark you get when you verify your government ID.
Yeah, it improves your odds, but what I've seen over the past 4 to 5 months is a ton of verified profiles that were hacked. So they had the check mark, they had premium, but they're entirely hacked profiles of people that were either inactive. And the timeline that I see these scammers take advantage of is if you're inactive maybe 3 weeks or more, then you're a viable target to, hijack. And
Wow.
it's insane, but there are tells with that because you can see the common history, you can see the sharp pivot in career history. So, like, let's say, Melissa, you work as a forklift operator, but then suddenly you're out here trying to get people hired and trying to get their resumes. It makes no sense to make this big of a pivot suddenly. And so those are some tells. But like I said, I've seen easily over 300. I mean, just with Deloitte itself, there were over 300 profiles that pretended to be human resources business partners, and they were trying to recruit people to Deloitte. But the problem was they're all fake, and are checking out when it comes to your work search is you can go to who.is, and when you do that, you can put the domain in there, and then it'll tell you the history of the domain registrants. And so for here, confidential careers, you see that it's redacted for privacy, which
Well, I think we lost Jay.
Yeah.
Got a
Yeah.
little lag there.
Yeah.
I do want to answer
here?
one of the. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So
lost
what
you.
I was saying was, so what I was saying was like, if somebody's redacted for privacy, it's not necessarily a red flag, but it can be. But the issue here is the address. So if you go to the next slide, that's an address in Iceland. And actually, this morning when I was doubling back and looking through the deck, I looked at that address, and it pulls up an article from the New York Times back in October 9th. And basically, in Iceland, they have very loud.
Wow.
Did he freeze up again for you guys too?
Yes.
Yeah. But
Is
I
it
think
me?
we can.
Am I frozen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Am I back? Am I back? Okay. Sorry about that. But basically, this website is being hosted through a private server, and it's routed out of Iceland. And since Iceland has very liberal rights when it comes to internet privacy, it allows scammers to continue to, doing the things that they do. Am I lagging or no?
No, you're
You're
good.
Okay. And so the next question,
Jay,
it
wait,
brought me-
I do have one question. Sorry,
Mhm.
somebody had asked, so I wanted to bring it up. Enrique asked, should we avoid uploading our resume to LinkedIn?
Oh.
I mean, I would say yes. I would say you should treat it like a social security card, treat it like a light credit card application. Because I always cringe when I see people post their resume publicly, because it's like, it's just.
But LinkedIn wants them to do this. LinkedIn, tells job seekers, upload your resume, upload that resume. So
In theory, that works. In theory, that works when you're uploading it to someone trustworthy. But with all we've seen, it's just best to really vet the person that you're interacting with, vet the company, make sure it's legitimate, and then just send it privately to them, as opposed to giving it out to where it can be scraped, where it can be stolen or manipulated in some way. But when I was thinking about.
Can I say one thing about that, Jay? And I'm curious what you guys think. Like, I see sometimes where people will pin their resume to their featured section.
Yeah.
That I think is a big mistake, right? So like, I'm just thinking about the website that I was scammed on. It had a dozen examples of resumes that they did. And my guess is they just scraped them off of LinkedIn or off of other websites. So I think there's cases where maybe you have to upload that resume to apply to a job or to apply to a company, but I wouldn't just have it out there. Like,
I'm really curious too, because, LinkedIn has all of these like features and signals and things on the back end to help recruiters who are paying for and using their LinkedIn recruiter talent solutions. And so if a job seeker turns on the feature, like they've uploaded their resume to LinkedIn and they turn on the feature to share their resume with all recruiters, it allows recruiters who are paying for a LinkedIn recruiter seat or subscription to then search those resumes, the skills and the information in those resumes populate in search results, which then benefits job seekers because they are more easily found by legitimate recruiters who are paying for a seat. I would like to think that scammers are not paying the thousands of dollars for a seat at, using LinkedIn Recruiter, but I don't know that's the case. What's your take on that?
The problem is they are. I've seen it myself, because when I exposed a fraudulent company that was taking jobs from a real company and putting it on their company page, and they were using pictures of attractive women and making them part of their company and saying that they were recruiters. When I called it out, I had my own little tiff back in October 2024. But basically, basically what happened was, a recruiter that's fake can be legitimized if the entire business is fake. So basically, like, you can have a verified check on your profile if you verify through your company email. And I've said this before, if a company's entire mission is to fish and data farm and, become data brokers and steal people's information with the lure of jobs and career coaching and resume writing, well, then of course they're going to verify you as an employee because you're part of the scheme. So yes, there are people that pay for recruiters license, and there are companies that pay for recruiters licenses that are entirely fake.
Okay. That's what I was wondering, because that's where things to me get a little trickier, because you want to do things as a job seeker that are setting yourself up for success on LinkedIn to be discovered by legitimate recruiters. But then the other side of that is that now you're also making yourself more vulnerable as well, sounds like.
So Rodnetta asked or said, this is also overwhelming. How are we to find new opportunities with all the scams? Please give us some hope.
Yeah, I try not to be a negative Norman, but there's a maneuver that people have shared, I've seen, where you can search on LinkedIn and then you change the URL in a specific section. I think it's to like 8,400 versus the actual number that's there. And it'll show you jobs that are posted within the actual hour. I have to look it up so I can share it with the people, but pretty much it'll put you at the top of the list for jobs that were recently posted. And then also your best bet is to always go through the company site and apply, because you don't get that nonsense with the fake resume writers and stuff messaging you when you apply through a direct site. Like I said, I try not to be negative. I try not to overwhelm, because, at the rate I go, it takes a toll, but the cost is too great for me not to do it. And so that's why I go. But yeah, that's what you can do. You just have to, the example that I use is treat yourself like a lottery winner, and everybody who's coming to you, they're not trying to mean well for you. They're trying to get your money. And so what you have to do is be like, I have all this money, I have these resources, and now I need to be very discriminate in who I share them with. And if you do that, that'll definitely curb a lot of the overwhelmed feeling that you have.
Debbie Marshall did point out, which I don't think we had said this yet, but she said, I also think it's wise to advise people to not put their birthday and their phone number and their personal email in the contact section, which is true. I see that all the time. Like she said, the scammer has a lot of personal info to steal someone's identity. They're just handing it to them.
Yeah, within just a few clicks, they can have your entire life history.
Yeah.
So how scammers operate, I hold back a lot because I'm angry about this, like, more than I can let on, but I have to keep it PC. But it truly angers me to see what's going on. But, at the core, scammers are evil. They have no conscience. They don't care who they hurt. They don't care who is, defeated. They don't care who is destroyed by this stuff. They just keep going. Anybody can scam, like you see on the slide. It's easy to scam because people share things. People are too trusting. And when people are too trusting, they can easily be taken advantage of. But I commend anyone who is operating professionally in this time, because it's a trying time. It's a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos going on. And for people to continually every day choose to do the right thing, I commend that. I've just seen several stories of people who have taken their lives because they were scammed. I've seen stories of people who've lost their Life savings. There are a couple of stories I talked about many months ago where one woman thought she was taking a job with Sheen, and another woman thought she was taking a job with I forget the company. But basically, in both instances, they took a job, they got a check, the check was fake, it bounced in their account, they lost thousands of dollars. And then in one woman's case with the Sheen issue, she took the job, leaving her real job. And then when she realized the fake job she took was fake, she couldn't go back to the real one. And so she was completely, messed up. So yeah, it's intense.
Yeah.
And so here it gets a bit lighthearted here because I get the scammers to break the fourth wall a lot, but I don't think they have walls, so I say they break wind. Um, and here I call them cowards because they are. They hide their faces behind real people. They use face swap technology to avoid detection. They do whatever possible to do things underhanded. But in this instance, they don't expect somebody to directly call it out, to directly expose their methodology and, bring it to the people so that they know that this is not someone to trust. And so these are people that are professionals. They're, Johnny Scott is supposed to be a senior director or board director at Lockheed Martin. These other people are supposed to be professional resume writers, but when it's exposed that they're not real and not who they say they are, all of a sudden you see how they really talk. And would you trust these people to write your resume? Would you trust these people with your career? And so I laugh at it because this is their nature. This is how they actually communicate. Velma, I thought of Scooby Doo because Velma's from Scooby Doo. And it's insane. It's insane. And this one guy, what's his name, Muhammad Assad, and who the hell are you, Jay Joe's? Like, are you the SEO of LinkedIn? Like, you can't make this stuff up. And like, they'll publicly argue with me. They'll say stuff like, I think if you go to the next one,
Yep.
I'll go back. Well, no, there was, the Johnny Scott one where he said he doesn't mind spending his life saving, not savings, but life saving to protect his name. But he clearly stole Greg Canfield's picture. So you can't make this stuff up. But next slide, please. Protection strategies and tools you can use to help improve your job search and protect your brand if you're not in the job market, but are the one helping people get out of it. Don't ignore the slightest red flag. Slow down. What you need to do, like I said, treat yourself like you're a lottery winner. Why is this person messaging me? They'll typically start off with a templated message like, what brings you into the job market? And it's a dumb question because either you quit your job, you were laid off, or you're re-entering the workforce if you were a stay-at-home mom and you're deciding to get back into the workforce. It's a question that doesn't need to be asked. You're here for a reason. Now, one day you can be productive and the next you're out the door because you're laid off. And some recruiters mishandle that situation. A lot of job seekers are experiencing what I call layoff PTSD. And it's a situation where you don't know where your next opportunity is going to come from. And then even if you land it, you're waiting for that surprise message that, hey, let's have a quick touch base. Hey, that that last report you turned in, you need to do this, this, and this. And you start to rehearse in your mind, like, am I, going to be let go again? Like, people just want some stability in this time. Yeah. And so that's what I and other professionals like you aim to provide them. And then if you go to the next one. So I put out this free scam detection guide. It's in my featured section on my profile. And what it does is it breaks down the common methods that scammers use when they're doing their introductory messages to you, their overtures. It shows the methods that they use. It shows how they're deceptive. It's pretty much like 14 or 15 pages. It's not a long read, but it's something that I wanted people to have by their side as they're looking for work, so it keeps them away from the nonsense. And then when it came to the actual over 30,000 jobs that I removed, I knew that it would be necessary to create a case study, something that people could reference and go to, because, you see that number, you might not think it's legitimate, but I assure you it is, because that's how bad it is. And it's honestly worse. There are many more fake jobs out there that I'm working on getting down, but I compiled this as a resource so people can see the job titles that they use, the language that they use in these job descriptions, because, if you're looking for another opportunity that's in your industry, but it's hard to land it, what you'll typically do in the meantime is take a bridge job, something that you can earn money from home while you're looking for work. And a lot of that is data entry, customer service, content writing online, things like that. And these are the specific titles that they target. And that's why they list those jobs, so they can quickly get your information and scam you. And next slide, please. I'm currently working on volume 2. It'll be more in depth, it'll be more comprehensive, and it'll talk about different things that the scammers are doing to evolve. Then I also have a business called the Profiler Protection Service, and those are the rates for the different services that I offer. If you're in the business of, if you're a professional corporation and you're anticipating doing layoffs, you could work with me to bring me in as part of the the offboarding process, so that people have some training and some comprehensive structure on how they should navigate the job market that they're unfortunately entering. And then the next slide. This is the section where I can answer any questions that you have. Jessica, Melissa, Aaron, whatever comes to mind, happy to answer.
Well, I do want to read one question from Diego, who said, so LinkedIn isn't a safe place to search for jobs. Based on Jay's comments, the safest way to look for a job is just to apply directly from companies' websites.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's yes and no, because no place is 100% safe, because even if you go to a company site, if that company is part of a data breach, it's not necessarily their fault. But I mentioned this separately, that every company is one errant click away from a data breach. Like if you click a link and the site gets infested with malware or something like that, human error is always a factor. So I can't say one place is 100% safe, but what you can do is make yourself more safe as you look for work.
I want to just say something. I think LinkedIn is a wonderful place. I say every day that LinkedIn is a platform of generosity and opportunity, and I believe that with my whole heart. And I don't want to have people think that, oh my God, I can't look for a job on LinkedIn. You absolutely can. It's all about, this is just my personal opinion. Jay's the professional here, but I mean, we're all professional, but Jay's the professional scam breaker here. For me, I really wanted to have this conversation because we have to be vigilant, right? And we have to not ignore the red flags that we sometimes see, right? All three of us here have been the victims of an impersonator. And in what I saw, there were a ton of red flags that people should have paid more attention to. And they ultimately did, right? Because they ultimately came to me and said, hey, something doesn't feel right here.
Yeah. Right.
But
yeah,
trust your gut, be vigilant. And if something doesn't feel right, don't do it. And I would say, yes, be careful with how much personal information you share anywhere. I've never put my birthday on my LinkedIn profile. I never understand why people do that. I mean, I know why people do it, but to me, that's like, no, why am I giving out a huge piece of information for anybody to be able to grab? So do I personally think you should apply for jobs on LinkedIn? 100%. Yes. LinkedIn is a job search board for a lot of us, but be careful. And I would definitely be careful of places like what Jay showed, right? This, where you don't know who you're applying to, right? When there's some sort of veil of secrecy around it.
I think for me, the one thing I want job seekers to take away from this is to not accept every interaction at face value and be quite as trusting, and just maybe do your due diligence. So if someone reaches out to you, like Jay said, go to the company website and make sure that it's actually listed as a legitimate opportunity.
Absolutely.
Do a little bit of poking around, especially if that person is pressing you to immediately work with an expert off platform. They're referring you to another website or an email address for a specific person that's not on the platform. So just, do your due diligence and double check before you start sending them information or you start giving someone money. Like, I think I speak for all of us. Like, our goal here is to help protect job seekers and our fellow career coaches and colleagues. We want you to be safe. We want you to be smart. We want you to know the signs of what to look for, so you can avoid getting scammed. And also, so if it happens to you that you get impersonated, you know who to go to, Jay, for help, and what steps you need to take to protect yourself, your brand, your reputation, your LinkedIn profile.
You know, if something does sound too good to be true, double check. I mean, I've had a number of clients that said, "Oh, there was this great job, but I did call the company." Like, for example, the first one that came that turned out to be a scam was Boeing, and it was like some VP whatever role, and they called, and there was like, and they said, "Is this a job opening that you are looking for?" And the person on the phone took a few minutes, but came back and said, "No, we're not hiring for that." So,
Wow.
I mean, it takes
That's smart.
5 minutes, but it's going to save you in the long run. A lot of frustration and, ultimate scamming.
Yeah, what I want job seekers to know is that you still have power in this situation. And what happens is, when you're laid off and you're in the job market for an extended amount of time, it damages your psyche. You start to wonder if you have any value professionally. And then you couple that with the former people you worked with. If you don't hear from them anymore, you're like, well, did I even matter? These questions come up. And, you start to get desperate, which I don't think anyone should be desperate. I mean, I understand the situations and the times. I'm in that situation myself where you just don't know what tomorrow will bring, what the next week will bring, and you're doing everything possible to make something happen. But I urge you not to jump at everything. I urge you not to let the reality of your situation and the harshness of what's going on make you jump into a decision that could actually make your situation much worse. Because yes, you need to be urgent. Yes, you need to be diligent. You need to be quick when you see a job opportunity. But that's what scammers take advantage of. It's the desperation. I look at it like your brain is in a fight or flight state at all times. And in those instances, you're not able to think clearly because you're under this constant stress. And when you miss the ability to ask critical questions and halt the interaction and be like, wait a minute, because you still have the power to stop and be like, hey, I need to understand this, because there's this fear that you would offend the recruiter if you just ask questions, but a real recruiter doesn't mind being questioned. A real recruiter doesn't mind you doing your due diligence, because their job is being hammered by this too, because the real recruiters have to deal with the fake applicants. They have to deal with people impersonating them. I just talked about a case with a Salesforce recruiter where they used her name, but all they did was take the S off the end of it. And just like have these long emails with people claiming to be hiring for Salesforce. And so it's affecting every area of legitimate business, and it needs to be talked about. It needs to be stopped, because at the end of the day, real people are the casualties, and the scammers, they just get to do this with essentially impunity.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Very true. Any more questions? We have a lot of comments.
Yeah.
Questions.
I did see a lot
Yeah.
of people early on in the comments asking what LinkedIn is doing to address this.
Right.
I don't know if you have any feedback from LinkedIn, Jay. I reached out to a couple of my internal contacts at LinkedIn, actual employees that I know personally that I've worked with over the last several years, to let them know about what we were all experiencing, to ask them if they were seeing it on their end, and what was going on. I've been assured that they're aware of it and that they're currently working on how to combat it. But outside of that, I haven't received any additional follow-up or insight. But again, I just reached out to them last week, so it's pretty new on my end.
I'm combating it. I know that. I'm doing it every day, every night. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah.
I have no choice but to take them at their word, but I also see what's going on. I'm in it every day. So, yeah.
It's like whack-a-mole with these guys, right? And it's everywhere. I can't tell you how many email and text messages I get that are phishing scams every single day.
Oh yeah.
That it's the USPS that there's a package waiting for me. I have to fill out this form and pick it up. It's DMV that I have unpaid parking tickets. Hey, guess what? I live in New York City. I don't own a car.
And the tolls.
Yes,
Don't forget the
it's easy
tolls.
as exactly that I own tolls. So I don't want this to be like a, bashing LinkedIn session, because it's not LinkedIn. There's a billion users on LinkedIn, right? It is like whack-a-mole with these guys trying to put out a fire and then another one starts. It's on us to be vigilant. And that's just the truth, right? It's on me when I get that text message that says I have a package waiting at the USPS and I have to fill out this form to say, really? How does the USPS have my phone number? And
I had one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I had one not too long ago. I think it was a week and a half ago, where I got a voicemail stating that I owed $999 to Amazon customer service. And so I decided to be funny and call them and basically pretend to be an old man named Reginald Bartholomew Cubbins. And what I did was I talked to him. I was like, I don't have time for this. I just, I threw on a voice to basically gain intel. I made it funny because this type of stuff, it actually works. It gets people. This is why they do it. But I needed the intelligence so I could share it with people so they can see, like, hey, Amazon is huge, and you'd be pretty hard pressed to find one person that hasn't bought something off Amazon. And so that's why they do it. And so, it's particularly elderly people and the new people entering the job market are typically susceptible to this because, they just think, oh, this is an emergency, let me call. And then by the time you realize that the person that's supposed to help you get your money back was actually helping take it out of your pocket, it's pretty much too late.
Yeah.
I
was just going to say one basic thing that I have seen a lot of. If somebody from Boeing is reaching out to you, they're going to have a Boeing email. It's not going to say, Joe Smith 4578@gmail.com. It's going to say Boeing.
Yeah, Boeing's domain is at boeing.com, boeing.com.
Right.
Lockheed Martin is at lmco.com.
It's going to be the company name, not a Gmail.
Yeah. And you can always.
Same thing goes for us. So if someone a recruiter refers you to one of us, it's going to be at our company name. It's not our company URL. It's not going to be at a Gmail URL. So that's a good one there. Jay, really quick in the comments, 2 questions. One person asked how they get the download. I think it's in the featured section on your LinkedIn profile, right? The download that you were offering.
Yeah. And if not, I'll put it in the comments after this live ends. So I'll put the link to it.
Great. And then the other question was someone hopped on late and was asking if this is recorded. Yes, it's recorded. You can watch the recording by going back to the event on LinkedIn, and it will replay for you after the live is over.
Any other questions?
No, but I just want to thank you, Jay, for all you do for all of us on LinkedIn. I mean, you know how I feel about you. I'm just so incredibly glad to have you on my side because you were right on top of it right away. I was like, what is happening? So I really appreciate you in putting this talk together with Jessica and Melissa.
Yeah.
I'll echo
that. I'll echo
thank
that.
you.
Jay solved my problem in a matter of days when I was getting absolutely nowhere. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely
the monthly monitoring the monthly monitoring program with Jay is amazing. And it's, if you're not doing it right now and you're thinking about it, do it.
Yeah. I would say get ahead of the game and be proactive if you're a career coach and do that so that because if it hasn't happened to you yet, you're either not aware of it, someone hasn't told you, or it's coming down. It's coming down the pipe. So get ahead of it and protect yourself because none of us have 40 hours a week to go chasing all of these scammers when we're trying to run a business and take care of clients and write resumes and help job seekers and produce content and all of that. So it's really just a weight lifted off of my shoulders to know that Jay is there, that he's got my back, that when this happens, he's on it, he's tackling it, he's keeping an eye on it in advance, he's monitoring, alerting me of things that I wasn't even aware of. And so it's just been really, really huge peace of mind and stress relief to know that he's there and that he's supporting me.
Thank you all for that. It's not easy. It's a labor of love, like I said. When I was laid off, I had all the emotions that you have because you're responsible. I'm responsible for so many things. You know, my wife, she has postpartum issues. Daughter has colic. Son, he's it's just a 6-year-old. But like you all know, on the call before we got started, I was up until about 2 a.m. last night. Daughter threw up 2 days ago, had 101 fever, took it to the ER yesterday. Son, he got sick. He's not feeling well. My wife has ongoing issues. And I'm still here because the mission is the mission. Like I said, it still matters. I don't want to see anybody scammed, anybody harmed, anybody done wrong. And so that's why I do this. So yeah, if you can support, it will mean a lot because I need your help. And I just appreciate the people that have given support, that have helped, that continue to interact with the work and continue to tell people, because like I said, when you tell people what's going on, then it helps bring it to an end. But if we just stay silent, if we keep this veil of professionalism because we don't want to be looked at as, like I said before, rabble rousers or malcontents or somebody who's complaining, well, then people continue to get abused. And like I said before, I can't tolerate it. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And if you can go to the next slide. Thank you, everybody who attended, everybody who will see this if you couldn't make it live. This means a lot, and I want to see everybody win. So, except scammers, you guys continue to fail. So yeah, thank you.
Well,
thank you all
so
for your time.
much.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.